Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea Johnson. I am a dear friend of Dr. Michelle Jackson Lloyd. I am here to share with you my experience regarding my journey as a parent of two college students who have transitioned out of my home and now have either completed college or are now currently in college. And so I want to again say good evening to those of you who are in Dr. Lloyd's Learning Labs, specifically the emerging mothers. And so I'm here this evening just to talk to you about my journey as a parent who's experienced this two times over, and just to give you some insight as to what my experience has been like. And I'm absolutely welcoming any questions that you may have. I'm hopeful to give you that my testimony will be a blessing to you as you face this journey of transitioning your students out of the home into college, because I do know that it can be an experience that's full of questions, just full of just seeking information. And so I'm here to kind of help facilitate that process. So one, I want to start with my journey. And so I have been honored by God to be blessed with two beautiful daughters. They're now 25 and 20. And so my 25-year-old has completed college and has started a career and very successful in life. And I have a 20-year-old who is now a senior in college. And so I've had the opportunity to be blessed to do this a couple of times. And so I would just really want to horn in on that first time experience, because I do know that that's what the majority of you all are experiencing, is that first time experience. And so that transition, I want to be very, very transparent with you. It was difficult for me because I am what they call a true mother bear. I am that one that really hovered over my children, especially my firstborn. As we know, there's no manual out there to tell you how to parent, or the perfect manual. And so I learned as I went along. And so to prepare for that journey, and I want to also preface it with, I'm an educator. I'm a counselor. And so I'm supposed to be that problem solver. I'm supposed to know all of the answers. And I'll be completely transparent with you. I didn't know all the answers. I was learning as I went along. And so leading up to her transition, which was in 2015, as she transitioned from high school to college, I had a lot of questions, just like I would imagine you all do. My first point of reference was God. I prayed and I asked him to help me as I navigated through this. My second point of reference is I relied on the high school counselor. I am a counselor, but I'm certified kindergarten through 8th grade. So I'm not a high school counselor. So there are a lot of things I didn't know. So I became the high school counselor's kind of best friend of sorts. I let her know that I entrusted her with helping me to lead this journey. So if you have not befriended your student's high school counselor, I would recommend that you do that. Please befriend that person, because they are the beacon of knowledge as it pertains to the transition to high school for to college for your current high schooler. And so I didn't facilitate, I actually coordinated and arranged meetings to say, hey, tell me where you see my child going, what are ahead for my child. So that was key. I also leaned on, of course, my husband, and we know our child best. And so we know, what particular academic environment was best for our child, because we have to understand that not all colleges or the environments are best for your student. You have to find the environment that's best for your child. So that was the first thing that led up to that. And then we did college visits. We consulted with our daughter to figure out, like, what are some of the schools that you think you might be interested in? Let's horn in on those. Let's schedule some visits. And so giving those colleges an email or a call to say, hey, we're interested in visiting your campus, and then setting up those times to do that. So that's what led us to those campus visits. It's very important to not just show up. but actually reach out to those campus advisors, those departments who are responsible for scheduling those tours, and get a date on the calendar so that you can make sure that you have a scheduled appointment. Don't just show up because you might not get the tour and all the extra things that they provide for you. So that's important. And then transition day. It was very difficult for me. I take a deep breath as I realize that during that time, there was a lot being lost. This is a child that I have cradled, that I have nurtured, that I've had under my wing for now 17, 18 years, and I was releasing her to society. And so it was hard realizing that I was losing that sense of control. When really, when you think about it, we're not in control of anything. God is in control. But for me as a mom, and like I said, a mother bear, I thought, I am losing this sense of control. I am releasing my child to society and hoping that and praying that it will turn out to be good. And so that's what I felt like I lost, a sense of control. But what I gained was a child who really had the foundation, the spiritual foundation, and just the overall foundation to do what she needed to do to be successful. And that's with both of my children. And I will tell you, the second time around was even better because I saw what I learned from the first time around. I corrected those mistakes the second time around, and it gave me a sense of comfort when my second child went off to college. And so I would say that's something that I lost and gained. I lost that sense of feeling like I was in control, but I gained two children who were very independent and reassuring to me that I had laid a great foundation. I want to talk to you too about the emotions. With my first child, I was in a bit of a denial state. I denied the fact that she was leaving. I held back the tears when I dropped her off. I didn't even realize I cried until my mother showed me the pictures later, because I was like, I didn't cry. I was strong. I wanted to be strong for her, so I didn't cry. It was the evidence, or the receipts, as my mother called it, that made it very, I guess I couldn't deny it, that I felt a lot of emotions. I cried. There was a sense of loss there. But at the same time, it was also a sense of pride. It was a sense of just feeling like, okay, I've accomplished something. She's accomplished something. They both accomplished something. We're done with that chapter in our lives. But I tell you, I was in a complete sense of denial. I said, no, I didn't cry. I wanted to be strong for my children. But I later found out that tears does not indicate that you're not strong. And so that's what I feel like I was experiencing during that time, because you want your babies close to you all the time. You want to protect them. You're concerned about them. And I'm careful to not use that word worry, because I don't worry and pray, but there is concern. And so I was concerned and I cried, not knowing that I cried, because I tried to put up this tough exterior. But I knew that all the time that God had them, and I trusted in him. So those were my emotions, just trying to figure out how not to be overly concerned, but yet trust in him and trust in the foundation that you've laid. As I've gone through this journey twice, now at the age of 51, I think twofold, I'm at a point where I'm re-envisioning myself as a parent, but also just as someone who is halfway or maybe in the third quarter of this journey called life. And so the steps that I've taken, it didn't happen until last year with re-envisioning or reinventing myself, has been living for me now. I've dedicated the last 25 years to laying that foundation for my children. And you'll find that as an empty nester, you'll go, wow, I've lived this life now dedicated to my children. And now that they're gone, what do I do next? The answer to that is, do you live a life that is purposeful for you, especially if you know with your whole heart that you have laid a good foundation with your children. It's time to live your life for you. It's time to figure out or get back to what your purpose is besides being a parent. You will never, ever, ever lose that title. You will always be a parent. You will be a great parent, and that's okay. But it's also important to remember that it's okay. Give yourself permission to take time for you, to live life for you. So once my youngest was out of the house, I took my first solo international trip to Puerto Vallarta. It was the best time ever, and I have absolutely no regrets. So I say that to say, do things that are meaning for you. It may not be an international trip, a solo international trip, but start living your life with those bucket list items and give yourself permission to live, because I can tell you your children are now living. And so live with them while you're away from them. And that also goes to parenting at a distance. For me, when I know that when my children need me, they're going to call me. I am reassured that they're going to call me when they truly need me. And when they don't, that's okay, because I know that I prepared them to face those obstacles when they truly realize that there are obstacles that they need to overcome. And I've prepared them for them. But I also know that when they pick up their phone and call me, they truly, truly need me, and I'm there for them. So that's what parenting at a distance looks like. It looks like being there when your children really need you, but trusting that you have laid the foundation so that they are equipped to make those decisions when you're not there physically in that moment. So I just got a call today from my youngest. She's overwhelmed by some of the courses that she's taken, and she's like, Mom, I'm a senior now, and it's too late to turn back. But I feel like this is a lot. And I said to her, baby, you've come too far to go back now. God wouldn't take you this far to make you turn around. You got this. It's okay. Let's sit down. Let's write. Let's strategize. Let's write out a plan. And we did. And I sat on that phone with her and I said, okay, tell me step by step. Let's first start with what's the most pressing issue you have. Okay, let's strategize. And we walked through that. And then I checked on her 2 hours later and she was like, Mom, I'm good now. I have this. I realized I was overwhelmed at first, but like you said, I've come too far, and I know God won't lead me this far to have me to turn back now. And I'm okay. I have a plan. Thank you, Mom. I have this. And I said, baby, call me if you need me again, but I know you have this. So again, just providing that reassurance and letting them know that it's okay, but also helping them to strategize on those next steps. Oh, and I am overjoyed when they come home. What I have learned since my children have left the home and now coming back, I used to think that once they turned a certain age that they should leave the house, they should go and they should just fly and they should be okay. But since they've left, I have a different perspective. And this is twofold, as I've been doing some diversity, equity, and inclusion work on my job. And I don't think it's a mistake. It is definitely purpose-driven by God. I no longer feel that we should push our children out of the home when they're not prepared. Because when you think about when you were 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, you really didn't have a clue. And I look back on my life and I didn't have a clue. And if I wasn't pushed out so soon, my life probably would have turned out a little differently. So I'm a firm believer now in building generational wealth. And so when they go off to college and they get these degrees, I'm now at a point where I reassure them that it's okay to come back to mom and dad's house and save your money. And as long as you're responsible and doing what you're supposed to do what you need to do to build your nest egg so that when you go out into the world, you are fully prepared to buy that home. You're fully prepared to make those great sound financial decisions. And so when I see them coming back at year end, when I see them coming back for the summer, I look at those new characteristics as to like how they've grown mentally, how they've matured, how they're able to make those decisions without mom and dad just being right there to help them every step of the way. And I'm seeing some positive things and some not so positive things, but then that's where I come in as a parent and my husband comes in as a parent to redirect them. And so I am seeing them having more confidence. My oldest daughter jokes with me, and at first I didn't know how to take it when she said, "Mom, I wish someone would even insult me with the salary that you make." And at first I was like, really? This rubber band check has gotten you through? Like we've made barely made ends meet to make sure that you've had. So I was insulted at first, but then I thought, job well done, because we always want our children to be better than us, to do better than us. And so I'm glad to see that she has the confidence to negotiate her salary. I'm glad to see that she's able to do better than making ends meet. And so I've noticed just an overwhelming amount of confidence and reassurance in both of my girls. I was blessed to have a support system that was amazing. When I had my oldest daughter, I lived in Atlanta, Georgia. And I told my husband I felt like I needed to come back home so that I can have the support that I needed. And for some other reasons too, but I'm glad that I did. Raising my children and having my mom, having my sisters, having just a host of family members there to support me through this journey, support us through this journey, is something that I could never, ever repay my family for. My daughters have surrogate aunts, uncles, there's all sorts of family members and extended family members and friends that they can rely on in our absence, or just to supplement what we've done. And so the support system that we created was amazing, because if they thought that we were telling them one thing that they questioned, they were able to go to the next person who was able to say, yeah, here's what I think you should do. And it reinforced what we told them. And so I had an amazing support system throughout raising them, and even when they went off to school. So there would be times where, for example, I'll give you a clear example. My youngest daughter went to Fisk University her first year, and she wasn't happy with it. And she said, Mom, I'm ready to come home. And there was a number of reasons, and I'm not going to bore you all with those reasons, but there were a number of reasons. And I was juggling and figuring out, like, my husband and I had to work, and we were like, how are we going to get to her right away? My oldest daughter took it upon herself to go online, rent a minivan, and by 8 o'clock the next morning, she was on the road to get her sister at Fisk University, packed her up, and they were back here by 5 p.m. that next day. I talk about a support system and talk about being proud, because this was my 23-year-old who did this, because she knew Mom and Dad had to work, but she also had this love and loyalty for her sister, that she could not stand by and allow her sister to suffer in a way that just was not just in cause. And so talk about just building that network, but that was only because she had seen her older family members do that and support them in a way that she now knew the importance of supporting her sister. And that was amazing. I worked that day, my husband worked that day, and we were not afraid. We had a sense of comfort that we knew that our oldest child could get there, do what we would have done, and probably better, and got her and her sister back here safely, things in the van packed up, unpacked by the time I got home. And I just tell you, my support system is amazing. So if I could just give you any advice, create a support system, whether it be close family members, friends, church members, which our church, our youth ministry at church is amazing. Minister Preston is amazing at Shalom Church, Shalom City of Peace. And so we just have an amazing, I would say, if you would do anything, utilize all of your people around you, because I believe in the village mentality. That's not gone. Some people think it is, but it's not gone. My neighbor next door happens to be my cousin that I didn't know was my cousin before. And we developed that village mentality before we knew we were related. So neighbors, your church family, your co-workers, your extended family, that is your support system, and don't be afraid to reach out and use them. Don't be too proud to do that. That's what's going to get you through those good times, those tough times, those celebratory times. I couldn't have made it without my village. And I am a firm believer of what the village represents. Don't get away from that old school mentality of a village. It's important. Whether your village is in Houston, Texas, like part of my village is with Dr. Jackson Lloyd, I can call her up at any minute and she's going to pray with me. She's going to talk to me. She's going to guide me, and we bounce ideas off of each other. So it doesn't have to be anyone in your immediate community. It can be those that you've grown relationships with all over the world, and all over the country. So your support system is who is instrumental in supporting you and your family. If I could just really take a moment to reflect on my younger self, it would be to remind myself that I'm not perfect and that I am not in control. There were times where my oldest daughter encountered some situations that I blamed myself, and I went back and I said, oh, why didn't I? I should have. I could have. And I beat myself up over it. Now looking back at my younger self, I would tell my younger self, you did the best you could with what you had. And don't beat yourself up over it. Because at the end of the day, you are not in control. And as long as you believe and you trust him in your shortfalls, he will always cover you. He will always protect you. He will always protect those that you love. So don't beat yourself up. So if I could tell my younger self that, because there was a time where I beat myself up and said, oh, I should have, I could have, I would have. I don't do that anymore, because I know that God had me the entire time, even if I thought I didn't have myself. And then I want to leave you all with a couple of things, words of wisdom. As your students are transitioning out, just know and believe that everything you poured into them, they're going to take with them, whether you think they will or not. They're going to take it with them. And you're going to be amazed when you get those phone calls when they say to you, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, I remember you said this, or hey, Mom, hey, Dad, can you tell me how to navigate through this? Or Mom, can you tell me this? Or Mom, something as simple as, can you give me your tuna recipe? I just got that last week, and my heart was filled when my daughter came home for the weekend. She's like, Mom, can you make me some tuna? Oh, and by the way, I love your banana pudding. Can you make that too? I couldn't make that stuff fast enough. I was up at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning making banana pudding and putting it on ice so that it would stay good, so that as she transitioned up the road, she would have it. But I would say just trust and believe that everything you poured into them, they are going to represent that wherever they go. So if you know you've done a great job, or you've done the best that you can do, as they were growing up, the transition will be seamless, because they're going to represent you and God the way that you poured into them. So just trust and believe. And I'm going to leave you with this last thought. In 5 to 10 years, what is going to be on the other side of being a mother? As you all are watching, I'm just so filled with thinking about my granddaughter. I have a 5-month-old granddaughter. My now 25-year-old has blessed me with a 5-month-old granddaughter, and she is the light of my life. She's my joy. Just seeing how now this is third generation after me, and just watching her grow and reaching milestones and doing things that remind me of myself. And so when I look at what I'll be doing for the next 5 to 10 years, I will be celebrating my legacy. by God's will. If God allows me to see the next 5 or 10 years, I'll be sitting back and just rejoicing as I see my family grow, as I celebrate those milestones with them, as I see my granddaughter just living out the legacy of her mom and then of me. And so I see myself also pouring wisdom and being that matriarch and pouring that wisdom that I poured into my daughters, into her, and then doing it with even more knowledge because now I have experience. So that's where I see myself in the next 5 to 10 years. And I challenge you all to think about where you'll be in the next 5 to 10 years. You'll be looking back and you'll be saying, my God, look at what he's allowed me to do. And look at the fruit of my labor. That's where I see you, because that's where I see myself. And because you're here tonight, and because you have an interest in what Dr. Lloyd is doing for you, I already know and I already see positive things happening because you care enough to get the extra knowledge and the extra wisdom to pour into your children who are now embarking on this journey. I want to leave you with God's blessings as you transition your students to the next step. It's going to be an amazing journey. And if I can just leave you with this, live in the moment, live without regrets, and know that you've done the absolute best that you can do. And sit back and wait. I tell you, you're going to rejoice in what God is doing for you and for your children. It's going to be an amazing journey. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Have a blessed evening, everyone.